Okay, uh, this 2 weeks is basically about pilot briefing. So it's taking everything you've learned and applying it so you guys can be safe out there flying around this country and wherever you're flying. So I thought I would focus Oklahoma, Texas area. Uh, we'll say you're trying to fly a small plane today, which is Sunday. Uh, there is a lot of issues down there, to say the least. Obviously, the further north you're getting, you've got high pressure, better weather probably. You can even see it on the observations page here. Further south, however, you're right along a cold front. You have lots of interesting and not good flying weather. So, what if you were briefing how fast and efficiently might be some ways of looking at all this? Well, obviously, a surface map gives you a quick overview of everything. You can see a front, you can see the weak low pressure here, you can notice the winds and see your high pressure. So you can have an idea, okay, if I'm flying from Oklahoma going into Texas, I'm going to get worse. But with that, let's take a quick peek at some other things here. I wanted to look just a little bit at Storm Prediction Center. If I'm flying anywhere, I want to know what kind of severe weather might be in store for me. And you can see the Storm Prediction Center today has some thunderstorm possibilities over the Rocky Mountains. Uh, again, a little bit over Massachusetts area here, Rhode Island, southern Florida, and a little bit up into central parts of Texas. But boy, down around Brownsville in the southern tip of Texas, there's an enhanced risk of severe weather. So if I am going to be flying into Brownsville today, I need to be aware of that at some point today, there may be some really nasty, severe weather down there. So this is just one of the tools that Storm Prediction Center has for you. So now that we know some of this, we know we're not going to be hitting thunderstorms probably up in Oklahoma or anything, but when we're moving south in Texas, we could be hitting some. Now, western part of Texas, again. And the interesting thing is they outline the area where they expect thunderstorms here, which is kind of nice to know. So let's just take a look and see how things are evolving down there. This is the jet stream, 300 millibars. This was last evening. There is a very intense, for this time of year, low north of the Great Lakes with a very strong jet over the eastern part of the United States. Very intense upper system here coming through. This was last evening about 8 o'clock. And I'd get a nice thunderstorm at that time. And you can see all the enhancement here. Notice there's another little jet down here, and it's kind of a wiggle in the contours here. So maybe, might be something. Here's another part too, wiggling a little bit down, like a little trough in the air here. So for just projecting these 24 hours ahead, might be something down in this area to worry about. So this is today. And here is actually a little bit of a dip in the jet stream here. There's a big strong jet up here. Right rear quad has divergence, which means we would have lifting aloft. Left front quad of a jet, and we have a little bit of a subtropical jet down here, would have divergence as well. So we actually have what we call a couple jet. So there's two different areas of divergence across Texas right now. So we could pick out a little bit of this yesterday, but as we're planning this flight now, you're probably going to have some turbulence up here too. If you're flying from Oklahoma to Texas, you're cutting across the jet stream. As you're cutting across it, the odds are you're going to be hitting some areas, at least at this level, where you have some significant turbulence. So you look a little bit further along, and let's just look at an 850 millibar chart here. This is this morning's map. Well, look at all the southerly flow right here. If I'm flying into Texas right now, I have east winds at the surface, but at 5,000 feet, I have pretty decently strong, 25, 30 knots of southerly jet into this area. So I am going to have some wind shear as I'm landing in this part of the country. Further up, I have east winds as well, not very strong compared to the north winds I had on the earlier surface map. So not as much wind shear, probably. But it is nice to know that if I'm flying here that, okay, this is something I need to anticipate. Also notice lots of moisture, all the green indicating very high dew point air, very rich environment of moisture. So this is an area where I definitely would be thinking about thunderstorms. One of the other things we can do sometimes is look in more detail at that particular area. This should be the surface map coming up. But it's a surface map with some observations on it, which is what I wanted to show. And I can click on an observation on this map. And what you're going to wind up seeing is a 24-hour, even up to 3 days of how that observation is changing. And knowing how things are changing can definitely make a difference in what I'm going to be dealing with. And you as a pilot are going to be. So dealing with a server out here in Western Region Headquarters, which is in Salt Lake City, that doesn't like me right now too well. But we'll move on from this a second. And here is the goes. I zoomed into the one area here that I was really interested in. This low levels, I've got moisture coming up from the south. High levels, I have nice high tops. You can really actually see a shadow back here, which indicates the tops are fairly high. So if I'm flying into this part of the country, I need to be knowing that, okay, if I left Oklahoma City, I'm going to be running into clouds, fairly high clouds at first, but that are going to be lowering and eventually becoming into thunderstorms. And say I was going to the Great Lakes for whatever reason, a very quick look at this says there's a lot of bubbles. Notice the patchwork to the clouds up here and how they look like they have a texture to them. That indicates they're not really thunderstorms, maybe showers or at least some cumulus clouds up there that are probably bringing some turbulence in the lower levels. So if you're flying into the Great Lakes again, you're dealing with that very strong upper level system with the cold air aloft, which means there's instability, which means there's some showers, or at least some potential for them. Now we go over the Aviation Weather Center here, and aviation weather. Let's close this one out a second. This is going. It should be a map down in the southern part of the U.S. here coming up, and that will show us the areas that have current pilot reports in them. Interesting. Okay, I'll show you this one instead here. I wanted to show you a sounding from Oklahoma City where you're well north of the front. Yes, you have some little bit of wind shear, but not a lot. Much stronger jet up here. And you have your clouds are probably about 5,000, up around 450, 500 millibars or so. So they're up fairly high. Now, if I looked at a sound one down here at Brownsville, notice very moist in the low levels, very unstable right here. Nice strong southerly jet where we had a northerly one earlier. So you can see that's where you're going to be running into your storms down in that area. We can always go into more detail with Storm Prediction Center people. And there's your little trough, cold front down in here. Enhanced, really, you can see some very good thunderstorms down in this area right now. And one of the nice things about the Storm Prediction Center's webpage is it has lots of detail. If you're really interested in what's going on right now, you can always look at instabilities and see how you're going to be bumping around down there, and you can see there is some instability down in this area, part of the world. Nothing north of that. Matter of fact, very little instability up here at all. So you're going to be getting near the coast before you really run into the threat of thunderstorms here. Wind shear can even be determined on this. And you can see it's all down there in the southern part of Texas as well. And here's Brownsville's weather radar. Notice this loop bowing out here. It's called a bow echo. We've talked about that in the course. If you see one of these and you're flying towards it, get away from it. I'll just leave it as simple as that. It is going to cause you problems because there's going to be a lot of a strong wind gust here, probably very, very, very high tops. And you can see also that behind it, there's a lot of showers back in behind it. So as this thing is moving south, the main echoes are moving south. There's a lot of redevelopment of showers back in here. Maybe even a few of those might become isolated, weaker thunderstorms. Sometimes this happens as a mesoscale convective system, which is what this is evolving into right now. If you're out ahead of the storm, if you were in Mexico or over the Gulf of Mexico, you can see the showers are more widely scattered. But when you get to the front, right behind that front, right along it, there they are. And there's actually a tornado warning with this cell right here you could actually see. So all these are what we've talked about through the whole course. I hope you got a little bit out of this. And if you have any questions about all of this, please don't hesitate to ask.